If you're in the e-commerce space, then you've probably noticed that there seem to be some brands that are scaling extremely fast to and past the 8-figure mark, and they seem to have no problems. So they're doing it very profitably, they're growing their revenue fast, they don't seem to have cash flow issues, and their profit margins are still very, very decent. The main thing that these brands understand, and yes, they do exist, is that email marketing is very, very important in the whole strategy. And if you don't do it right, they are missing out on a lot of money and making the whole process impossible or way, way harder. So if your email revenue is below 25%, please watch this video because I'm going to show you how to take it past 20% and why it is so important in scaling your 7-figure brand to and turning it into 8-figure brand. So let's start the whole video with very, very quick math. Let's assume that you're doing 300k per month right now, and if your Klaviyo does 10% of that, it's 30k per month in revenue from emails. Now, with a few optimizations and very quick fixes, you should be able to easily take it past 25%. And I'm saying very easily because we've got brands doing 8 figures per year and their email revenue is at around 30 to 40%. So yes, it is possible. It just takes more time and effort, but overall, you should be able to do it. Now, assuming that, that would be an uplift on your current revenue, which in this case is 300k, it would be 15% off 300k, which is 45k per month or 540k per year or an extra annual revenue. The more revenue you're making right now, the more extra revenue that would be. As simple as that. Because it scales with your revenue, like total revenue, the percentages, and so on. But you get the point. This video is most likely going to be worth your time, as it will show you the fixes needed to get your Klaviyo account past 25%. So again, if you're past 25%, you can still find some optimizations that will help you take it even further. But yes, it's possible to make it even 30 or 40% if you're at the 8-figure mark. So make sure that you watch it. I'm going to be showing you all of the fixes. Now, getting into details of every single thing that you could be doing wrong would take me hours and I still might miss something just because I lack the full context that only you have. So I don't know your brand as well as you do. You have the full context, you know everything, all of the numbers. So again, doing the deep dive would take me hours, which is something we do for our clients. But when recording YouTube video, I can't get into the business of everyone. So I'm just gonna focus on the fundamentals, right? Because even if I would dive into do a very, very deep dive and focus on those small things that could be an improvement area, they would still fall under one of those 4 elements, which is if you have any like underperforming part of your marketing strategy, one of those 4 categories will be the solution, or these will fall under one of these 4 categories. So these categories are going to be deliverability, list growth, consistency and volume, and then content. I'll cover them one by one. So even if you think that, these aren't an issue for you, you will be able to double check and be sure that all of these areas are fine and they are doing actually a good job. So let's start with the most important thing probably, which is going to be your deliverability. This is one of the most critical parts of your whole email and Klaviyo strategy, because if your emails are going to spam, you will have a very, very hard time getting your Klaviyo account to over 25% of your total revenue. And I mean, just think about it. If your Klaviyo right now attributes to 10% of the revenue, but your emails are going to spam and your average open rate is 20%, just by doubling your open rate, which is getting it to 40%, you would double your attributed revenue. And trust me, 40% open rates are very easy to get if you follow the quick fixes I'm about to tell you right now. But overall, again, this is the lowest they should be aiming for because we have clients doing 45 to 50% open rates on their flows and campaigns. So here is a very quick 5-step action plan on how to fix your deliverability. Number 1 would be defining it. So defining your current deliverability, where your emails are landing, and where they are landing for specific inbox service providers, also called ESPs. So we want to do this by running deliverability tests using tools like Gmass, Glockups, stuff like that. And then we also want to add your domain to Google Post Master Tools to see what's going on and come up with an action plan, because Google shows you the data for Gmail inboxes specifically. That's why you need to add your domain to Google Post Master Tools, just to have the full view of the situation, which Klaviyo might not always be showing you. And that's why you don't need or pretty much you can't rely on just one tool. Then you want to do the technical setup, which is going to be branded sending domain plus the main DNS records, which are going to be SPF, DKIM, and then DMARC. then you want to make sure that you have only high intent flows if you're landing in spam. If your emails aren't going to spam, you can pretty much skip this step number 3. But if they are, then you may want to make sure that you have only high intent flows, which is gonna be the welcome flow, abandoned cart, and you want to have at least or like maximum 1 to 2 emails in every single flow. That's because further down the flow, the lower the open rate. So the open rate for email number 5 in the flow will be lower than for the email number 1. That's why you want to have only, the first emails in each flow to make sure that all of them are very, very high open rate. Then you want to warm up your domain by sending to small, narrow, and highly engaged segments. And then you can just expand to broader segments, plus turn on all of your flows, once again live, but you want to do it over time. So you don't want to really do it, one day after you complete all of the previous steps. This is a process that usually takes between 2 to 6 weeks, in extreme cases, even 8 weeks. So you want to be doing all of this over time. You don't want to be rushing, because if you rush it, you're going to mess up again. And if you mess up again, then you need to go and start from scratch, which ultimately will take more time. So just make sure that you do it properly, and trust me, it will be worth it. Now, let's talk about list growth, because your email list is like your whole business. If it's not growing, it's dying. If you keep emailing the same people over and over again without adding any new subscribers, your list will shrink in no time. And ultimately, if we look at it from like high level perspective, if you were to like cut off the inflow of new subscribers to your email list and you would keep emailing your current list, all of that, or like this list would die. Like all of the subscribers would go to zero essentially. That's because there is something called unsubscribe. And even if your unsubscribe rate is low, let's say 0.2%, the unsubscribe rate will be something that happens for all of your campaigns, all of your flows, essentially all of your emails. So technically, your unsubscribe rate doesn't have to change, but your email list shrinks and each campaign has less recipients. If you send it to 10k people, then you have some unsubscribed, then you send it to 9,980 people, then you have more unsubscribes, and then you send it to, let's say, 9,960 people, and so on and so on. And with every single campaign, you would be getting negative list growth. So you would be losing subscribers rather than getting them. And the solution to that is having a high converting pop-up, which again, it's a very simple solution and you must have it. And overall, you want to be aiming for your pop-up conversion rate to be at least 5%, but we've seen cases where it's even 10% or 12% or 15%. It just once again takes a lot of time, optimization and effort and understanding of what's going on. But yes, it is possible. So here's how you can set up pop-up very, very easily. The first step would be making sure that you have 2 separate pop-ups. So one would be for desktop and the other one would be for mobile devices. Then you also want to have a strong incentive, which would be the reason why someone should subscribe. Usually it's going to be an offer, like 10% off, maybe free gift with purchase, maybe free shipping. Any kind of offer is decent. Just make sure that you test them as well, because they will also matter in terms of when it comes to improving your conversion rate. Then you want to make it very easy for people to say yes. So one step should be or should equal one request, question, or input. Your SMS opt-in, if you have it, and you should have it, should be optional as well. So we don't want to make it mandatory. It should be optional. Then you want to adjust your trigger based on your average session time, because otherwise it might just heavily decrease your site-wide conversion rate, and we don't want to do this. We want email to work with your store, not against it. So we need to be also monitoring your site-wide metrics too. Then lastly, copy and design should both be clear and everything has to focus on the offer only, because otherwise the conversion rate will be way, way lower than it should be. Now let's talk about consistency and volume, because when you have both of the previous steps done, which is your list is growing fast and your emails are landing in the primary tab, and you're still not seeing your emails attribute to at least 25% of your total revenue, you're most likely not sending enough, or you're sending bad emails or wrong content, which is going to be covered in the next slide. But right now, let's talk about consistency and volume, because contrary to what you might think, it's not about some fancy strategies or tricks. It's about implementing the basics and sticking to them every single week. If you look at all of those big brands doing 8-9 figures, it's not like they have completely different strategy. They're also sending emails. They just have better content usually, or they've been consistent for a longer period of time. So if you're just getting started, then you probably send less total emails than some other 8 or 9 figure brands. And it's very hard to build a big brand like that overnight. That's why it takes both consistency but also volume, because if you would be sending just one email per week and you would have only 3 flows with one email each, the results also wouldn't be optimal because you wouldn't be sending enough. And that's why you need to have both and execute them at a very high level. And if you're wondering how to execute them at a very high level, I'm going to show you in the next slide. But in terms of the consistency and volume, you want to make sure that you have the following flows and that every single flow has between 1 to 5 emails each, depending on the purpose of the flow and what exactly or where exactly in the funnel it is. So we want to have your welcome flow, abandoned cart and checkout, and browse abandonment emails or flows. These would have 5 emails each. Just because they are very high buying intent flows and there's really a lot of objections that you should be covering, I would suggest you have 5 emails in each. Then for the site abandonment flow, which is like if someone left the homepage but never viewed the product, you want to have 1 email. Don't send too many to those people because they're not that familiar or interested, so don't push it over the edge. Otherwise, you will have huge unsubscribe rates or even spam rates, so you don't want to do that. Then we have window shoppers, which is going to be 3 emails, post-purchase between 4 to 5 emails, again, depending on your strategy. Replenishment and customer win-back flows, both should have between 2 to 3 emails each. And then for the 1-year anniversary, you want to have 2 emails in this flow. Then what you want to do with your campaigns is send between 3 to 4 a week, targeting your engaged buyers and non-buyers segments. If you're confused about segments, there's going to be another video which I'm going to show you right now on the screen. It's like my complete segmentation guide. So if you're confused about the segments and don't know how to segment your email list, this video is going to be the only resource you need to learn how to do it properly. Now that brings me to my next point, which is going to be content. When I say content, it really mainly comes down to copy and design. The design principles are fairly simple. You want to have a formatted above default section, and by formatted above default section, I mean having your logo, headline, subheadline, and then call to action, all of that above default. So when someone wants, they can click right away and they don't need to scroll, to the very end of your email to see the first button. Then you want to make sure that there's enough padding in each section so it's not cluttered. You want to have a lot of space between sections so it's very easy to read them. You want your emails to be readable. Then you want to make sure that your visuals are congruent with your whole website and branding. I've seen this so many times where, brands will go like completely crazy in terms of the email designs, but their website looks like entirely different and there's no congruency, which also affects the conversion rate later on. So we want to make sure that these are congruent with your whole branding and website. Then you also want to make sure that the buttons are big enough. I've seen so many like small buttons where I couldn't even find them in some cases. So you want to make sure that they are visible and like if you can see them, then probably people can see them as well, but make sure that you check on both desktop and mobile devices. And then for images, you want to also like keep using obviously lifestyle images, product photos, but you also want to be using images with people using the product because that builds trust and overall social proof, okay, and authority. But with your copy, it's fairly simple and it really comes down to the right research and messaging. Every single email should be targeting mainly one angle, objection, or idea. It's not like you have one email and you should be covering your FAQs, then giving a discount code, promoting your blog articles, and then showing your Instagram photo, and then maybe asking people to leave a review, and then lastly, asking them or promoting a referral program. All of that is too much. Every single idea should be included in one email. So one idea per email or one angle per email. That's how you make sure that the messaging is right, it's correct, it's concise, and it's about one single specific thing. Your flows should also be designed in a way that solves all the potential questions or objections that people might have at a specific stage. This is true for your campaigns too. Because you, like at every single stage, both buyers and non-buyers have different questions, objections. Let's say for non-buyers, in the browse abandonment flow, the pricing might be the objection. Maybe they don't know what to choose because you have so many products. Maybe they just don't trust you, right? But while people are checking out, they might have different objections like, hey, I don't want to pay for shipping, or it turned out to be more expensive than I thought. Or maybe, I thought I could pay in installments, but I can't. Maybe they just forgot. All of those are valid. And again, like in the abandoned checkout flow, you wouldn't be showing your best sellers, like what someone should choose, because they've already chosen. They have different reasons for not finishing out the checkout. But on the other hand, in the browse abandonment flow, you don't need to talk about installments or shipping just yet. I mean, you can, just to make sure that if they click the email, they go through the whole funnel and actually purchase. But you could be actually showing them bestsellers because maybe they don't know what to choose, which is again a very, very, very valid objection. Same goes for buyers and non-buyers. Both of them, for example, have objections where they're comparing you to the competitor. But non-buyer is comparing you in terms of, I don't know what to choose, I don't know if I even want this product, so let me choose the best company for me. But if someone already buys from you and the product works for them, they might be looking for a competitor because maybe it's cheaper, or maybe the competitor keeps sending them emails as to why they're better than you, and then this person is gonna buy from them instead. That's why you would like keep reminding them like, hey, we're good because X, Y, and Z, okay? That's why it's so important. But if you checked off all of the three previous fixes, you want to fix your content, which you can do by testing new angles, spending more time on the customer research, and just testing a lot of stuff with your campaigns and flows. Then implement your winners across flows and use them in your weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly campaigns. I've got one more extra resource if you want to optimize your account even further, and that's gonna be your complete Klaviyo optimization guide, okay? You can get access to this guide completely for free. There's gonna be a link below this video. It's also gonna be pinned in the comments, and the whole resource is gonna be a free 11-page Klaviyo optimization guide with over 20 A/B test ideas, 24 ideas to be exact, and there's gonna be an example for every single one of those ideas. So you can just copy those tests, implement them for your brand, and if you implement all of them and do it correctly, then you can easily scale your brand from 7 to 8 figure mark this year. So if you're interested, there's going to be a link below this video. Make sure you download it because it's going to be extremely helpful. But if you're downloaded and you want to still learn more, make sure to check my other video, which is going to be recommended by YouTube. Cheers.